And we are live and here in charge. It's been a while since we've been here, so we put a point up here to try to share a few things. Um, to start off, hello everyone. My name is David Pineda. We are talking today a little bit about kind of what's happening that folks may have seen in the news. I'm joined with some amazing veterans here. I have Kim and Brian. Ladies first. Kim, please introduce yourself to those that may have not seen you.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Kim. If you see me, pet Thor over here. He's over here. He's my service dog. But yeah, I was an Army veteran for about 10 years. I went to a West Point commission out there, served as a military police officer, and then was in Afghanistan for a year. And I was medically retired. And then now I run a nonprofit and just published a book. So that's me.
Well, I don't know how to follow that, but so so Brian Lofton, Army veteran. I did not deploy to Afghanistan. That's actually after my time, but uh, great to be here. Service, service disabled, connected veteran, and just loving being here with you guys and with everybody that's online with us.
Awesome. So really, one of the things I guess we'll kind of just start off with is the main focus that we wanted to hold today in light of what's happening. We usually kind of do some random pop-ins, especially for instances like this where things are happening, kind of in a current event type of status. We went ahead and kind of put our names out so we can go ahead and get rid of those now. So if folks want to, reach out, they can. If you have questions, comments below, you'll see that. Feel free to comment. Let us know what branch of service you were in, the years that you served, so we can go ahead and bring up your comments and recognize you. Um, but to set the tone, this is really, it's not a pundit conversation about politics or any of those things. It's really about what matters, right? What got us through service, the things that really, forge the bonds, which is each other. Folks can sit there and try to make noise on TV and social media and perpetuate that. And I think that the darkness that many of us have come out of, sadly, these things tend to spiral us back. As Kim shared, she has her service dog. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things she's doing in her amazing book that is out as well now. I have my service dog who's looking at me going, crap, you're back on the live again. um, but really, it's about holding space and just really, focusing on what matters, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about the person to your left and to your right. That's really kind of what matters when you're in the thick of it. So before we kick off, I'm gonna kick it over to Brian to uh, say a word for those that are deployed and those that may be going through some hardships, regardless of what your faith may be. You may meditate, pray, hold silence, or what have you.
All right, appreciate it, Dave. So, our Heavenly Father, we're coming to you this evening, so thankful for the countless blessings that you give us. But Heavenly Father, we lift up your name, particularly in this troubling times as we struggle, as we see conflict around the world, and particularly as we see the events that are happening today in Afghanistan and all the strife and the tragedy that's happening there. We particularly keep in our minds and thoughts and prayers for those who are currently in uniform serving, for those who have served and who bear the scars, whether they're hidden or whether they're physical, from their service. We knowing that we walk away from service not necessarily completely unscathed, and we also lift up our leaders to make the decisions that are best for our country and for our troops and for those that we are supporting. Grant us peace, Heavenly Father, in this time of need, and grant us the ability to reach out to those as we're feeling struggle, as we're struggling with our own personal demons. We all have the warrior spirit, but we also have hearts filled with compassion for those who are affected. And we just thank you for this opportunity for us to be here tonight and to support each other, and pray that will grant comfort to everyone who's here. And we give you all those thanks in Christ's name. Amen.
Um, so We'll bring up some comments. Folks have been kind of commenting as we've been here, so I'll bring those here uh, up shortly. Um, but I'd be remiss to say again, echoing what Brian said, right? Our hearts and our minds and our thoughts and prayers, meditation, what have you, are with those that are serving, with those that have served, and especially those that have passed, are fallen, those that are not around, whether that be in the current conflict or past conflicts, whether it be in one theater of operation or the other. Um, those are the things that we carry with us specifically. So just wanted to kind of make that a point to say that there. So we'll hold a minute, few seconds rather, of silence just for those, especially because of this conflict. Many of us know people specifically who've passed in Afghanistan, regardless of the political climate and what is going on. So we'll hold a minute of silence. Alrighty. So, Kim, thank you first and foremost for jumping on with us. If anyone wants to share something or jump on, it's really no set agenda per se. It's really just us holding space for each other. Um, and I think it's kind of timely, right? So I've been following some of the stuff that Kim has done. Like she shared, she has a service dog. She has a book coming out, so I think it's really timely because of the title of the book, "Lessons from Thor." So just kind of checking in as a whole. Uh, how are you holding up in light of all that is going on right now?
Yeah. I think a lot of people have a mix of emotions, and I'm definitely right along with them. Uh, there's like some relief to it because the next generation isn't gonna be deployed to that theater, and I was there 10 years ago, and now it's 10 years later, and it's like, and I was convinced nothing was changed, but some higher ups like always talk a big game, saying like it's changed, and like in the heart we knew what was going on. So I mean, there is some relief of knowing like that the theater, or at least that war, will be ended. And there's like some heartache because I don't think it was done properly. That's my opinion. Like, you can take for what it's worth. I think there was a better thing out there, but this isn't the first thing the military screwed up, and it won't be the last thing the military screwed up. And like, it's sad to see the plane full of Afghans just, and like, and everything, just like the complete chaos that came out of it. Um, so I think it's just a mix of just like sadness because like you don't see women out there, like what's going on with the women there. You don't see the children, what's going on with the children, and like we all know what the Taliban stands for, and even though they're giving interviews that they're going to do certain things, it's like we know that's not what's going to happen. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I didn't sign up to free Afghanistan. I signed up to serve my country. I signed up to lead soldiers in combat, and like that's what we did, and we did everything as well as we could. And like there's like no one came back from war saying like I wish I could have done more. I'm sure there's a few, but most of us are like, hey, like I did a lot over there. I did the best I could. Most of us were young, like your 22 to 25-year-old self. Like I would say the average age of like our company was probably about 25. That's like 150 military police soldiers.
Mhm.
And so you imagine these 25-year-olds trying to build a country, and you can't say like we didn't do everything we could to bring everyone back. And I think one thing, like I just hear the newscasters, and I think they're reporting it completely horribly because they're speaking on behalf of combat veterans and they're not combat veterans. And it's just like we're at a loss of what was the purpose. And it's like our purpose, like, yeah, we go over there and say like, hey, we're fighting for freedom. But as soon as you get down there and like you realize the firefights, IEDs, or whatever else is going on, you realize what it's actually about. It's about getting the guys and gals next to you home. And it's about like fighting along the Afghans, fighting with our allies, protecting our interpreters and all that. But at the end of the day, we're fighting next to our brothers and sisters and trying to keep them alive and get them home. And like, that's what we did, and we did it really well. And like any Afghanistan veteran, like, I mean, you did your job. And like, I mean, we did the best we could, and we did a phenomenal job. And for us to hand over the country to someone that isn't as equipped or knowledgeable or as trained as us, like, you can't like carry that burden. You have to look at like who you fought for and like what we did over there. And we know we did a good job. Like, no one had that shame until we saw the country fall. And as soon as the country's falling, like, that's when we start having that shame. But it's like that. And also know, like, we're thinking it from a Western standpoint. The Afghans don't see it as their country falling. A lot of them don't. They just see it as the next ruler going into power, and they're doing what is needed to keep their family and their friends alive. And it's a very harsh truth, because like if someone came knocking at my door right now and they said like, if you don't follow me, I'm going to kill everyone in the house, like, it's a really hard decision to make. So I understand it from their perspective more than I did 10 years ago. I can say that. And it's completely okay to have that mix of emotions right now. It's not okay to internalize them and shove them down and everything. It's not okay to go break the dishwasher. Like, it's not okay to do any of that. Find a punching bag, go write about it, go for a run, go lift some weights or something. Find that healthy medium of way to be pissed off and find meaning, and reach out to whoever you need to reach out to, or call a crisis line. Because like, if you do have those emotions, like, express them. Talk. Like, I go to a therapist like once a week. It's completely fine. Mm-hmm. And like, you just have to have those healthy outlets to find that balance.
I think so. One, we say is a lot, obviously, with those that tune in. Obviously, thank you for your service, and thank you for your continued service afterward. One of the things I think that you touched on that's really interesting is, regardless of what is happening in social media, in media as a whole, right? It's when the shit hit the fan, when things got rough, when things got tough, regardless of where you serve, whether that be Afghanistan, Iraq, the Gulf, round one, Vietnam, Korean War, what have you, those times of adversity, right? It's the person to your left and your right, right? Those are the things that really kind of motivate you, saying, look, this might be a complete hot mess. We did not make the decision to be here, but we stood to serve. And regardless of our personal views, like you mentioned, right? The fact of the matter is, we make it happen the best way we can. And if our AO and our objective is to do A to B, we do A to B as best we can. Things above our pay grade, again, it makes great media to just get attention and do all that. And wherever people may sit, it's like, let's slow down for a second and really focus on something you said, which is those that may, not only veterans from the Afghanistan conflict, but those that may have lost, those that may have seen things. This is triggering to folks who were in Vietnam. When you start to see, things happen on TV, and it's like, why were we there and what happened afterward? And for many folks, whatever coping mechanism they had post-service, right? There's something you kind of hang on to, right? If you've lost people, you hang on to the fact that, hey, I'm going to keep this legacy going. I'm going to keep this memory going. And we did a thing. And when things like this happen, that shakes that foundation for some people. And that's part where you mentioned, right? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to let that emotion out and not bottle it up. It doesn't diminish the service in any shape, fashion, or form. It doesn't matter what is happening at, higher levels of government, right? Because one of the things we talked about earlier in some email communication is many of us, we've, studied military operations at both strategic and operational levels. We can talk dime and talk about diplomacy, information, and military and economics. That's not what this is about. It's not about, international, relations and all that stuff. That's for other folks to do that. What we do is we move in, we take care of our people, those under our care. And the message that I really want to be resounding is that regardless of what may happen, regardless of who may say what, because obviously you're going to have both sides. Some people will discredit things, some people will say things that will trigger you. And that's one thing that I think people need to realize. And this happened in January when we saw what happened at the Capitol. For many people, it's like, hey, those things happen over there. It does not happen here. And when it does happen here, it shakes your moral compass, your ethics, everything. Like, wait a second, this is not supposed to happen. And understanding that it's okay to feel whatever those reactions may be and not bottle it up, right? Many of us, and I wanted to kind of go back to you here in a second, as far as, what you've been able to do in your journey post-service, have made strides moving forward. Don't let these moments set you back. Don't let these moments diminish the work that has been done, right? It's been 10 years, but for some folks, this may, take away the fabric of, hey, why did this happen? All these whys, and that begins to kind of go down a cycle and a spiral that I think it's just negative. So if it's therapy that you can reach out to at the vet center, the VA, find that thing. If it's someone you can talk to, again, if it's like they say, those that are strong, look out for those that are weak. Those that are weak, be open to those that are, able to lend some light, right? Those that are in pain, those that are alone in darkness, you can be the light. You can be that comfort to someone else the same way someone was to you. And that comes in many forms, right? So we can talk about service dogs, we can talk about our therapies and stuff, our faith, whatever it is that we have to hold on to. That's really what matters, right? No one can tell my story but me. And that's my reality. And the fact of the matter is, I may have my worldview, and I don't care what any media says about what. Like, that's your job to do that thing, great, but that's not something I'm going to let come into my mind, because I know the people I served with, right? And we have those names etched in our minds, right? We carry those legacies, those individuals, and we have those calls where we could have been there. That could have been us. And all these things that, we live with, we need to not let these things shake that, because this is, these are the things that you don't see every day. For many folks, this is a once in a lifetime type of situation, to where you can see conflict over a period of time and then see it come to an end. And then you start to see, again, from a dime perspective, right, what happens at various levels of government, right? From a diplomatic perspective, economic perspective, military perspective, information perspective, all these things that are at play. So it's a wicked problem. It's an actual thing. It's a wicked problem that just doesn't get resolved with an answer, regardless of who may be in charge. But before I go back to that, Brian, how are you holding up in light of all this, being a veteran who served, before, during, the early 90s and so forth like that? Where are you at? How are you holding up?
Well, of course, it's a struggle to see. I'm of the same opinion. It's good to see our troops coming home. When you've been had our troops deployed somewhere for just so long, I mean, it's incredible. Never before in history have we had an active, combat arena, protracted like this. So it's good to see the troops come home, and I can feel the same frustration that, I've seen, even Kelly Elliott has made comments, and I've heard others make comments. Built within us is the desire that we want our actions to mean something. And we want our actions to, we want to win, right? That's just ingrained with everything that we do. We want to win. Anybody who's been in the service has had to fight through challenges to get through training, to do whatever, right? So whenever we see the Taliban or coming back and taking over as we're leaving, so basically it's just like as we leave, they're coming right in. You can't help but have some sort of visceral reaction of, what in the world? What were we doing there in the first place? If we're just going to let this happen, and the reality is that in any conflict in history, you can see stories from World War II, from Korea, from Vietnam, where uh, servicemen and women their lives were lost in the battle for a hill,
Yep.
right? And you're thinking, what great value does this piece of land actually have? You have to that point, we have to think about this in terms of, we're there to do a job, and primarily we're there to look out for each other. It's not our responsibility to change the public's minds over there. It's not our responsibility to change their government. It's not our responsibility to make them become Western civilization, in their land. Even though that might be something we just inherently want to try to, hey, this works good for us. Why wouldn't you want this? So it's a struggle, but realizing, just having to take a step back, remove yourself from that immediate reaction, walk away, do something else. In fact, I've had to turn the news off more times lately than ever before. I used to be a real big news junkie, and I just can't handle it anymore, because it's all triggering. And so you just walk away. Walk away from that. This is why I spend so much time with great people like DP and everybody else on the team, is that I'd rather spend my time doing something constructive and trying to find some positive outlet, trying to help other veterans deal with these challenges, and other servicemen and women who are going to be coming out soon and dealing with the struggles.
But that's a good point, though, Brian, right? I think that's something to kind of focus on, which is, the reality is some people are hurting, some people are not. Some people are triggered, some people are not. And the conversation really is that if anyone is in a position to have a conversation, have that conversation. Because for many of us, before we even got to the point of reaching out to therapy or looking into modalities of things, it was really just a conversation of, hey, Kim, let me ask you a question. I see you have a service dog. Does that even help? Does it work for you? I've read, I've Googled, but I don't even know. And next thing you know, a conversation happens and Kim can share her story. What are the things that she's learned? Pun intended, lessons from Thor. Um, that pretty much she's able to carry with her. And I think though that's really where a lot of the healing begins for many of us. I want to give a quick shout out. We have some folks here viewing. We got Carmen in the house coming at us from Colorado. She says, yeah, good to see you. We got Lisa in the house. Hey, y'all, so glad to see your faces again, but sad over the circumstances. It's almost like one of those things where you don't see family until there's like a funeral, something happens, and you're like, hey, cousin so-and-so, we have to get together under different circumstances. 5 years later, Aunt so-and-so passes. There you go again. So that's hopefully not the case here. Lisa says, welcome to all. Carmen, thank you for your service, 8 years, U.S. Army. We have John in the house. U.S. Army 80 to 82, Fort Hood, Texas. Obviously, we'd be remiss to not share some of the information in the comments that you will see. And it sounds cliche at times, but the reality is if you are in a dark place or you are hurting and you need to talk to someone, take no shame in the fact that there are resources available. Being able to reach out to the crisis helpline, being able to text, being able to reach out to someone, whichever way it may be. There's no shame in that. It's okay to not be okay, and that's a true statement. We have Elliot in the house. Says, I didn't serve in Afghanistan, but I did serve in Iraq. I remember in 2015 when ISIS took Iraq back, I was so pissed and wanted to fight everyone. I can only imagine what the Afghan vets are dealing with. And that goes back to the point we talked about where folks can kind of start reliving some of these things of saying, hey, this reminds me of Iraq, right? This reminds me of maybe Saigon, or this reminds me of different things that may have happened throughout time. Let's see here. An agreement to the point that was raised, it feels like at times the entire Iraq Afghanistan wars were for what? All those lives for what? And those are the pervasive questions that many of us may be dealing with, people may be thinking at the moment. Let's see here.
I think that's
Yeah.
interesting because, like, right now it's very raw, and don't get me wrong, like, all your feelings are valid. But when we go to the Vietnam Wall, we don't say for what. And that's going to be the same thing as soon as all these emotions die down, because they will die down. Like, if you're having an intense emotion, like, don't let it be your last. Just get through that emotion. However you can, call someone. Give an hour is a great one. They have hour free therapy all the time for people. But like, we don't go to the Vietnam Wall and, like, the Vietnam veterans, and we don't say, like, for what. And that's going to be the same thing with OEF and OIF. I don't know how they're going to end Iraq. I hope they do it better than this, but it's not like, no one's going to go to that and say for what. So get through these emotions, process it, but, like, it's not for what. It's, we sacrificed everything we could for our country initially signing up, but as soon as we got to war, we did it for each other. And, like, I didn't sign up to, like, protect DP when I signed the dotted line, but if we're deployed in Afghanistan, I guarantee you, like, that's exactly who I'm protecting.
Crap. Now, not only is my dishwasher not safe, now Kim said not for me either. There's that part. Let's see. We got Liz in the house. She says yes to team therapy. We got Amy in the house. Alfred is in the house. Army, 3 years from 73 to 76. We got our
Nice.
brother Austin Williams in the house. U.S. Navy retire, 78 to 98. Just a few years, probably passing the blink of an eye. Lisa says, God bless you, Brian. And of course, all of you, you speak such truth, and we love and appreciate you all. I know I do. And you are appreciated. Alfred says, thank you for your service and brotherhood. And that's really what this is about, right? So, kind of pivoting a little bit, let's take advantage of having Kim with us here. So, Kim, tell us a little bit about some things that you and Thor have put together as of recent, and where folks can find some of the things you've done. As you've mentioned, you served. It's been some time since you were in Afghanistan serving, and now you serve in other capacities. Are doing amazing things both in the military and the first responder community. Tell us a little bit about some of that work that you're doing, and then we'll kind of pivot to the book as well.
Yeah. So when I was serving as a commander in Alaska, I was just struggling with suicidal thoughts. I was struggling with depression, addiction to alcohol and everything, and that's how I was using to cope. And as soon as I got to DC for my next assignment, just, like, constant suicidal thoughts. And so I finally got the courage to ask my general, as an aide at the time, to get some treatment, and he was more than generous with it. And so I got treatment from residential to intensive outpatients to outpatient for years. And I just realized, like, there's so much unknown about therapy, and what Hollywood portrays is horrible. And, like, what I thought was a inpatient psychiatric hospital,
Hmm.
like, is not a residential facility. Like, residential facilities are just normal people just going to therapy. They had a lot of abnormal events, and it's a completely safe place for people to process things in a safe manner, especially if you're struggling with addiction or suicidal or homicidal thoughts. And those are completely normal if you've been through certain things. But I just realized there was so much unknown in the therapy world that I wanted to help clarify that. And so I looked at the veteran space. There's 40,000 nonprofits. It's saturated. It's amazing. That's great, especially right now. Like, if you need help, there's literally 40,000 nonprofits out there to help you. And a lot of them are focused on, like, some type of mental health retreat or something like that. So definitely reach out. But I saw the first responder space because I was a military police officer. There was, like, about 100 I could find, and about 10 really doing some work in the mental health space. So I decided to co-found that with my co-founder Sarah, who was a prior police officer on the civilian side and military police officer. So we co-founded that, and so we help first responders, including veteran first responders, get to mental health treatment because they can face deductibles from $500 to $5,000, all the way up to, like, $10,000. So we help financially cover that burden of getting into treatment and then navigating treatment before, during, and after. So we'll partner with different facilities. We've only partnered with one so far because that's how seriously we take vetting. It doesn't mean we won't pay for other facilities. It just means if we're going to put our name on, we support this facility, we're very, very picky on it. And so there's only been one, Forge Health. They have some facilities on the East Coast for our first responders and veterans. They're doing some great jobs. They're run by a police officer and a veteran. So it's like a legit organization that understands, and they're not healthcare related. They just happen to be people that wore the uniform, understood the mental health issues, and now they're doing their part, and they got the expertise in the healthcare industry. So Forge Health is the only one we partner with, and there's some great resources out there. And we just try to get first responders to get that help, and then we go talk to different first responder departments about mental health. And we don't just say, hey, go get help. We say, hey, this is what an hour of therapy looks like. And we talk about, like, there's trauma treatment, and that doesn't mean you're sitting like the HBO series and treatment. Like, I hate that series because they're like sitting there one-on-one. And I'm like, no, therapy is a lot more structured than that. If you went through a traumatic event, there's like eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. There's CPT, there's CBT, there's DBT. There's all these like structured therapies. It's not necessarily you crying with a female therapist across from you that looks nothing like you. There are white male therapists, there's Latino, there's Black, there's ones that are like prior first responders, prior veterans. Like, whatever you need to feel safe, there is a therapist out there for you, and you just need a fire enough therapist to get the one that's right for you.
I need you to say that one more time for someone in the back, because I'm pretty sure someone didn't hear that part. We've said it before, but I think you're saying someone has the ability to fire people?
Yeah, you can fire all your healthcare, by the way, because we pay for healthcare, and the VA, you pay for healthcare with your life. So by all means, fire your whoever is not working for you and get another doctor, therapist, psychiatrist, or whoever. I've fired plenty of therapists and psychiatrists. I have some sexual trauma from the military. Every time they give me a mail, I fire them. But I mean, I don't say it like that. I say I need a new provider. But in essence, you're firing your provider.
But I think that goes to the point of owning your therapy, right? Your healthcare, having the ability to decide, right? This is not like the military, or you're going to like the TMC and they're saying, hey, here's some Motrin water and go change your socks, right? You're not forced to deal with stuff, right? In service, we had to deal with whatever we got, and we had to push through, make it happen, and get back on mission. Whereas now we have rights. And I think sometimes people forget that, regardless of where you're at. If you were paying for private insurance, you wouldn't tolerate someone that didn't perform the services that you were adequate to what you went there for. The same thing applies with the VA, right? It's not your service. No, you're a veteran who has access to services, but those services have to be satisfactory to what you need. And even to the point that Kim said, we have had many conversations with many of our veterans who've experienced various forms of trauma, from military sexual trauma to PTSD, complex PTSD, and different things. And one of the biggest things, especially in mental health, you have got to be able to work through your thing and be able to be there. If you don't feel comfortable with your therapist and you feel like you're just pulling teeth, just stop, because you're making no progress. It doesn't have to be a combative situation. And sadly, sometimes that's the case. If you feel that you have to justify yourself because that, provider is either diminishing you, speaking down to you, whatever it may be. Sadly, there are some bad apples. There are great people in great places, but there's also that percentage of folks that just shouldn't be there. And unless we document, unless we push back, unless we speak up, these things won't change. So in instances where, like Kim said, if you don't feel comfortable that the person sitting in front of whatever modality you're looking at, you don't relate, you don't feel comfortable, you're not moving forward. This is not like one of those dentist appointments or like a physical where you just go in, I'll see you next year. Like, no, this is a relationship. This is you coping and working through something. Like Kim said, it's a weekly thing. That's just part of her lifestyle. She has, she goes to therapy. There's a relationship there. There's a progress there. And going forward, that has to be something that makes sense. So I hope folks are listening to this, whether live or on the replay, You take heed of that because you have to own your health care, your mental health, whatever you may look into. And if something doesn't sit right, change it. Speak up. You know what I mean? Like, no one's going to make you push. Brian, what do you think,
Yeah,
man?
yeah, no, absolutely. And it is a weird feeling if you've not been there before. Whenever so one of the first psychiatrists they assigned me to, I had no connection with. I felt very awkward every time, and it is only after multiple people encouraging me, "Hey, you don't have to live with this person. If you don't trust the person you're talking to, you're there expressing your deepest, darkest feelings and emotions, and you don't feel comfortable with that person. You're not going to be opening up anyway." Um, so it's absolutely okay. It's not like you're going to be blacklisted if you say you don't like this person. It is a personal relationship. It is you have to have that rapport, I should say, and if that's not there, then your treatment or your therapy is not going to be effective. So take ownership of that. It's okay to switch, like Kim said. Go through as many of them as you need to get to that person who you feel like is hearing you, who is talking to you in a way that you can relate and you feel like you're getting some type of benefit out of it. You'll know it. You'll know it when you feel it, and when you're talking to them, and you'll know it when it doesn't feel right, when you're talking to them too. They may not be saying anything wrong. It could just be how they talk. It could be how they look at you. I mean, it could be anything. But if it's not comfortable for you, move on, and let them know, next. So
It is literally a daggone, shoot, move, and communicate type of situation. But in this
absolutely,
instance, it's, you're reaching out. And for many of folks that may be listening to this, right, think about how long it took you to get to a place of saying, okay, I'm going to take that step, right? Some people, thankfully, have been able to get service and help very quickly, right? Post events or trauma or what have you. Others dealt with things for years, some lifetimes. You have Vietnam veterans, Korean War veterans that are just now finally coming to a place of saying, hey, I've been carrying this thing for a while. And one of the things we've always talked about is there's a release and a power in not just saying this is me. And you have to understand for a second, imagine a Vietnam veteran or someone who's spent the last 20, 30, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years or what have you. And all you know is that, Kim is just grumpy old Aunt Kim, right? She's just a grump. She's just this. She's just that. And you begin to now attribute to her the things you see, unbeknownst to you that there was a time where Kim may have been the life of the party. There was a time where that was the person that was, shaking and baking and moving. And then things happened that turned off that flicker of light. And now what you experience, what you've seen all your life, is only but actually a reaction to things that have happened. It's no different, like we've talked before, of someone who's hit by a vehicle. The fact that you have a limp post accident does not mean you are a limp. You're not PTSD. You're not anxiety. You're not the things that you experience. You survived those things because you're still here. And the fact of the matter is now you're beginning to get tools, hopefully, to cope and begin to rebuild and move forward. No different than therapy, right? Some things won't come back. Sometimes you lose certain fibers in your legs if you've had an accident like that. But you work and go to physical therapy, and what do? You strengthen the muscles around that injured thing that may not come back. And slowly you start to regain the ability to maybe take a few steps or what have you. But people know, oh, wait a second, Brian had an accident. And that's why he had that little limp. But you know what? Over the years, you can't even tell no more. Back in the day, it was real evident. But now, you can barely tell unless you knew he had it. And for many folks, this is the same thing. Remove the limp and say anxiety, depression. Have the ability to, hey, maybe for someone, the fact that they went to their mailbox today is an accomplishment. Because maybe next month, next week, they're going to be able to go to the store. And so on and so forth. So those are the things I think that are huge to really focus on and hit on for folks that are out there. No matter where you're at in your journey, it's never too late to get help. That's the biggest thing right there. We got Chris Bourne in the house saying he concurs with B. Antonio Walker, U.S. Army, 8 years. Thank you for your service and being here. So Kim, tell us a little bit about so moving forward in the organization. You have a service dog. So fun fact. So Kim and I met. Oh, what about 2 years plus now at the MIC?
2019.
Yeah,
That was a lot.
we met at the MIC in DC. She had her service dog. At that time, I was in the process of training with my service dog, so we had not got placed yet. So we had a good conversation, and like most things, like, hey, I'm getting a service dog too. Let me talk and have a conversation. And fast forward, here we are, kind of crossing paths, and folks that I've served with, folks that I've worked with. She knows them, so it's a small world. But that being said and done, you have some amazing things that are just recently happening. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I started a blog years ago, and it was Lessons from Thor. It was my way of sharing my story in a safe way and a fun way, because who doesn't love a lab picture? And so I just took life lessons that I learned from Thor and applied them to like a life lesson. So if he like goes to the beach and there's like a big wave and he just goes and like runs into it and smacks down, but he gets right back up and just shakes it off and doesn't feel any shame or guilt or embarrassment about it. I take that and morph it into like when you're in the arena, like, and you're going full force, don't worry about the audience. Like, don't worry about what the news is saying about your service. Don't worry about whatever crap is out there. Like, you're in the arena, you know what you're doing. No one else knows your perspective. Go full force at it. Don't feel any shame or embarrassment. And so I take life lessons and throw it into that, and wrote the book for 3 years, because I decided to get an MBA from Cornell halfway through. And then, yeah, and now there's Lessons from Thor. I actually have a copy like right behind me. Yeah.
Are you saying copies of this one right here? Because all I see here is that Thor was literally taking up some space here, doing some of his own signings. Shows the book.
You got to put karma on it. But yeah, it's this, and then yeah, of course I have a ring light. So yeah, we'll do like signings of it. So there's a signing in DC August 28th. So we'll do a little autograph and then sign it with you. And then every book comes with a pay it forward card. So if you know someone that thinks like just like a little bit of positivity in their life, they can spend $20 and get Lessons from Thor, and hopefully they can take some stuff. So I start with like my story. I don't go into like gory combat details. I think there's a million SF books about that. So I just go over a little bit of trauma, and then like how I got treatment, or how I struggled and how I got treatment, and then how I've thrived afterwards. Just sharing parts of my story. And then all the chapters are about life lessons that Thor's taught me. And then I always end with different like thought questions. So thought journaling questions. So like it helps to write things down, but a lot of times people tell you like, hey, write things down, journal. And it's like, well, where do I start? And this is a great way to start, because I outline a cute little story of a Labrador, a little life lesson, nothing too heavy, and then just some thought journaling questions. Like this one's like, do a search for sleep hygiene. Is there anything you can include into your daily routine? So journaling can be that easy, and journaling helps so much, to the point where I made a life of just writing and really trying to process things in that way, and it really helps quite a bit.
That's awesome. And for those that may be interested in kind of getting more information on what you're doing, what are some websites, and where can they find you on social media? What are some of those details?
Yeah, so any nonprofit stuff, it's badgesunitedfoundation.org. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or badgesunitedfoundation.org on the internet. Lessons from Thor, it's lessonsfromthor.com, and Lessons from Thor on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not on Twitter too much, just not a big Twitter person, but yeah.
And some of the posts are amazing, which is it's funny. Obviously my team knows, me and my service dog Legend, and kind of our adventures through life and all that stuff. And obviously, we're a little bit newer in the process versus Kim and Thor. but they're always like, hey, document this or share some of that. And it's just different things. Like I remember the first flight I took, I was like, all right, Kim, I'm jumping on a flight. We're going to do a thing. And you're like, well, I haven't flown in a while. They're changing some rules. And it's just interesting to see the similarities of some of the things that are happening and just the hijinks and just, sometimes Thor just being, himself. And so it's a great social media to follow for those, regardless of where you may be. So on Instagram or on Facebook, you'll be able to find their updates and kind of what they're doing, as well as details for book signings and things of that such. And the biggest thing I will say is that, again, it may be something that may be helpful for you, but it also may be something helpful for someone else, because maybe there is someone out there who doesn't have access at this point to have a service dog, but those lessons come in different ways, right? Lessons from Thor are things that Kim is sharing, but other folks have lessons that are coming from other places. And the biggest thing is just consume that, right? Because we consume so much things. Try to consume it differently, right? Something that actually may give you a little bit of a lift me up versus like, crap, here's more negativity and whatnot. So Captain Lead Bottom says, anyone else have a terrible feeling in their gut about this? And to Kim's point earlier, right, those are some valid feelings that people are having in the midst of what's happening. But I definitely want to echo and double down on something Kim said, which is, in the moment, right, give yourself the grace and the opportunity to feel what you feel. But don't think for a second that this temporary feeling is a permanent feeling. Because when it's all said and done, we will look back and we'll look at the good in certain things. And what I mean by that is, like the point that Kim mentioned about those that serve, when you go to the memorials, you think about those heroes, you think about our patriots. Yes, there's politics, yes, things this, yes, things that, but you really kind of look at things a little bit different. And over time, that too will happen in this instance. So it's okay to have a raw feeling. It's okay to have undeveloped feelings, but make no mistake about it, this is not the enduring feeling, right? But to bottle it up, to not let it out, that's what causes problems. That's where some of the dangers lie. So to answer your question, yeah, many folks right now are having that, uneasiness in their gut for various reasons. And it's okay to feel those things. And I think it's healthy to have conversations in safe spaces where you can just put your, ego down for a second, your wig down for a second, right? And we can just not be big bad so-and-sos and just be ourselves and just be open and be able to share. So welcome to the conversation. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts there for sure. Lisa says you can get Kim's book at, again, lessonsfromthor.com. So something there for sure for those that may want to see it. You could definitely share that there. Lisa says 100% 3 times and a bunch of little prayer hands. Let's see here. Brian, some of your thoughts on your side, brother. What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the thoughts in here. Hopefully, people will turn to Christ in these times. And I have to say that absolutely, because Christ is the reason why I'm still here, able to sit with you guys today. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. So, when you're facing struggles and you're facing those dark moments, and you start to isolate yourself, you nothing good comes of that. Even though we still struggle with that, we have to understand and remind ourselves that there is a purpose for us being here. And for me, Christ and reading the Bibles and reading the Bible and praying and serving others, being part of that faith is a strengthening and is a therapy in and of itself. And I absolutely appreciate those thoughts. But yeah, it is a visceral reaction when you see things like this, see the struggling. DP had shared a video that was taken of these Afghanis clinging to an aircraft taking off, and the tragedy following. People just trying to hang on to the outside of an aircraft. You just feel that desperation for somebody to do that, and you feel for them. But you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your buddies next to you. and let those around you help you. Don't be so prideful to say that I that you're not good enough, or that you're weak if you accept that help. It's just it might be difficult at times, but it's not the case. You're not weak for accepting help, and lean on those stronger people around you. And like DP said, if you're the one that's feeling that strength, be that support.
And and again, for those, like, sometimes in the comments, folks get a little bit emotional and may have moments and whatnot. So we may put you in a timeout because it's a conversation and it's a two-way street, but it's not a narrative. And one of the things that I'm always big on is the fact that whatever it is that works for you, explore that thing. For some people, it's yoga. For some people, it's meditation. For some people, it's Buddhism. For some people, it's Christianity. Whatever it is that you can latch onto, that you can hold on to, that can take you out of the darkness that you are in, that's okay. And I think that's the biggest thing that we always encourage. I want to just really highlight Rashida for commenting and sharing, saying thank you for this. I'm feeling lost with the current events, but I am okay. And I think that's okay. And sometimes I would argue that just being able to express that is part of the process, right? Like, I don't know really where my bearings at, because like we talked initially, for many folks, right, this will shake up your compass of, okay, what's going on here? How am I supposed to react here, right? Because we're very methodical for most part, most people, right? You have your routine, you deal with life, nothing ever kind of comes new. And when things like this happen, it just kind of screws up your OODA loop. So in instances like this, just understanding that, okay, yeah, a little disoriented right now, emotionally, psychologically, but hey, I'm still here. I'm able to share. I can type this. I can say this. And for some people, that is progress, and that is something. So I want to, one, welcome you, Rashida. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing that. Because the other part is, I guarantee you someone feels just like this. And sometimes it's some one of those things where it's like, you know what? Yep, what she said. Yep, what he said. And, some folks may not have the ability to articulate what's happening. So, again, feel free to share and type kind of where you're at. But thank you again, Rashida, for tuning in and sharing your thoughts. What's Thor doing?
He's actually like hanging off the chair. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, Legend is, he was, I guess the neighbor wanted to come out, so he felt like he wanted to go ahead and bark and try to see if he could go play around and do stuff. Like, no, not time for that now. So he's like, alrighty. It's funny how the clock they're on. It's like Legend on my side of the house. He has a clock. So like literally right now, he's kind of like, okay, you're good doing your thing, and you'll see him over there. When we do a live, the kind of telltale sign, because I don't play poker, but the telltale sign is if we're doing a live and I start to get either heated or really passionate about something, whatever it may be, you'll start hearing a squeaky sound in the background. Like, it's the weirdest thing he does. He grabs his squeaky thing and he sits right here and he just starts to squeak the crap out of it. I'm like, that was not part of a process that we had, but it's pretty much kind of like, okay, now I'm focusing on his squeaks because I'm thinking, crap, this is annoying, and I'm doing something, or I'm live, and it works. And other times he's completely gone, so he's roaming around, kind of doing his whole thing, does a little popping every so often, and does the little Labrador kind of side eye.
Yeah.
But when the time comes for us to wrap it up, it was my youngest two who identified apparently the trigger word. So there is apparently a trigger word that I seem to always say when I'm wrapping up, these events or meetings. And every time, like clockwork, as soon as he hears it, he bolts, and he's just like, "Alrighty, it is. It's that time." And he's like, "Look, you can't say that and not shut it down. So let's go, buddy." But it's definitely interesting to kind of share that. But let me ask you, for those out there, again, there's some legislation and some things that are kind of happening right now, the Pause Act and so forth, and new initiatives that are out there. And I like the fact that Kim made a point to say there are so many nonprofits out there and organizations. Literally reach out, search, talk to people, because there's different ways to get what's available. But if you had to kind of tell someone, Kim, who would reach out and say, for example, they're maybe dealing with things or they've considered getting a service dog or what have you, what would be your advice to someone out there who maybe kind of beginning that process or journey and say, okay, well, that's something that may, has benefited you, but maybe not for me or what have you. What would be some of your tidbits for those out there?
Yeah. I think the first thing is if you're not in therapy or regularly talking to a religious person of some sort of, even if it's not official therapy, if you're not talking to your pastor or whatever other religions call their religious people, if you're not regularly talking to someone, like you really need to get into that because if you do put an adorable lab and you see this lab next to me, the chances
Hmm.
of you approaching me are 1,000 times higher than if you just see this. Like it just happened. So
Say that one more time, because I'm telling you, that's the one thing. And it's funny because it's not scripted. I literally texted Kim today and said, hey, you want to pop on? And she's like, what time? Cool, let's go and roll. Say that one more time, because I think that's the one thing people do not realize when it comes to having a service dog.
yeah. So if you see Kim and Thor on the street, you're more likely to approach us than if you just see this person. Like if you see this person, you're probably not going to approach me. You're just going to go on. But if you see this adorable guy and he's the only one in the Walmart and you're a little stressed, or like if you're on the road in Georgetown, like, and there's a kid, they're going to pull the tail or whatever, you're just going to get approached and triggered nonstop. And so your therapy is going to go from 0 and it's going to accelerate to about 50. And so that's why I say you need to get into therapy and discuss it with your therapist. Because if you're not ready for those interactions, um, and it's just going to isolate you further. And you want the dog and you to have a relationship that's going to facilitate your healing, especially if it's for mental health reasons, PTSD, TBI. If it's for mobility, if you don't have mobility and mental health issues, I mean, good for you. You're a solid individual, but a majority of the time they go hand in hand. But the chances of you needing to have your mental health in check and having that additional support. So when you do get triggered in public, you have that therapist or religious person or whoever you talk to on a weekly basis or biweekly or monthly, you have that support to push you out there and continue your healing. That's always my first thing is talk to your therapist and see if it's the right issue. Because if you're not ready to go out to the grocery store and be approached about probably like 5 times, like, can I pet your dog? Um,
Minimum.
yeah, at least 20 times people are going to like stare at you and have that attention, then it might not be the right time right now. But you can get there. Don't get me wrong. If you really want a service dog, you can get there. And that might be your motivation to get better. And that's a phenomenal motivation.
I would almost equate it, Kim, to like working out, right?
Yeah.
For those that you know how it goes, right? You take a time off and you don't do something, and when you get back to doing it, it is the worst for those few weeks because you got DOMS, you have delayed on muscle soreness, and everything hurts, and you're wondering why am I trying this? But eventually, you begin to strengthen and recoup rather. But for most organizations, specifically who are working with veterans, a lot of them do require that you be in some type of therapy and have medical release documents. Because to Kim's point, I will completely respond that that's the one thing I don't think people realize. Again, I am not the fastest, I'm not the tallest, I'm not the strongest. There's a lot of things that, for most intents and purposes, I'm a very average person. But there is no gym that I can walk into where all eyes don't go on me. There is no airport that I go into where all eyes are not on me. There is no nail salon that I cannot go into where all eyes. It doesn't matter where I go. We've taken family vacations, we've traveled, and I'll tell you, we went to the Caribbean over the summer, and we took him international and had to go through the whole process to take him with me, and obviously there's no other animal in traveling vicinity. So not only are you now dealing with customs and traveling, it's everyone's looking at this. So we literally get to our destination, and I have my documents that I had to go send and do this whole thing with customs and FDA and all that stuff. They didn't even look at the daggone paperwork. They're too busy looking at Legend and his little wagging tail, and it's just like, oh my god, he's so cute. I'm like, if you don't look at this damn paper that I had to go freaking drive to the vet, submit, mail, do a thing about, stress out to get it done and all that stuff. But for many people, I mean, we kind of make light of it now. But there are times where it's just like if you don't have the coping mechanism to understand that attention is going to come, for some folks, you may want to disappear. You may not want to be the center of attention. And it's not saying, obviously, that you can't tell someone, hey, no, right? Because people will come up and they'll ask questions. And for the most part, I found that, at least here, in my travels, most people tend to be very kind of like, hey, that's a service dog. He's working, don't touch him. So I've seen that there's more of that happening as of late. But you do have people who do the, drive-by petting, where you're walking by and they think they can just sneak one, and they'll sit there trying to call your dog over. So like, my funny thing is, whenever I'm traveling, the kids know it, so they find it hilarious. They ask, oh, what's the dog's name? I'm like, oh, it's Butch, or it's Michael. Like, I always give it the wrong name. And they'll sit there like, Mike, 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 Mike. And he's just like, oh, he's so well trained. I'm like, because I'm not going to give you his real name. Because you're just going to sit there and try to call him to you. You're defeating the purpose. But again, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a positive, but we have to be realistic that there are things that are going to be triggering. There'll be days when you don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to deal with it. And it's just like, not today. Headsets in, moving on out. But I wanted to just kind of, echo Kim's point, because it is an attention magnet. Sometimes I'm like, I love my yellow lab, but if he was a Doberman or a pit bull, I wonder how much better would that be to keep people away and be just like, hey, can I pet? Like, no, come, say hello. Oh, you don't want to. I think the last thing I'll say on that is, I literally one day was walking, and the daggone sheriff, on his patrol car, stops at the corner, rolls down his window, and he's like, man, I'd steal that dog from you in a heartbeat. I'm looking at him like, is that really what you want to say in a cop car? And of course, obviously, we're jesting and joking, but it's definitely a magnet, to say the least. Back to you, Kim.
Yeah. No. So therapy is the first thing. Make sure you have that support. And the second thing is, make sure you find an organization that fits you. Just like your therapist, not every organization is going to be of a good quality and is not going to be the right fit for you. So whereas like this able veteran worked great for me, it might work horribly for someone else. So find the right fit. Find the ones that have really well-trained dogs. Chances are, if you have a dog and you're like, oh, this could be my service dog, chances are they're probably not going to make the cut. So please don't go out and get a puppy and think it's going to be a service dog, or try to transfer. It does work every now and then, but it's by far not the norm. And so find the organization that has good dogs, has a good reputation. If you have friends that have service dogs, or you have friends that have service dogs, ask them where they got their dog, inquire about that. Find the good organizations. If people ask me, I only recommend about 4 organizations. I won't make it about the organizations I recommend. If you want to, you can connect with me offline, and I can tell you the ones that I recommend. But that's how picky I am about dogs, because if Thor gets his tail pulled in the middle of a grocery store by a kid, I do not want him to bite. And some organizations do not have that reliable dog that will not bite the kid.
Oh, no, and it will happen. Because think about it, right? Like, back to my point, and it's one of those things where it's interesting how, as you progress in your process with your service dog, the things that you train become part of the everyday norm. Example being, I am, in a line, in customs, or wherever, or at a grocery store, and guess what? Someone's going to step on his tail. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Someone's going to step on his tail. Like, maybe me even taking something out, I may back up and step on his feet, and it's one of those things where, for him, it's kind of one of those, like, seriously, guy? You're just going to step on me? And again, it's just the fact that he's desensitized to those things, but those little things, people would not understand, and some organizations may not have that. Like, I've been to places where, like, the elevator's over there. I'm like, we could take the escalator. It's like, he can get on the escalator. I'm like, yes, and an elevator, and open it. Like, wherever I go, he can go. It's not like, hey, I can't get on that thing because no, we traverse life. But to Kim's point, that's a big one, because those are the small things you don't realize. Someone's going to pull someone's tail, and the last thing you want is now you're in a situation where your service dog, right, who's not trained to do that thing or what have you, now attack someone. Now you have a whole different conversation to deal with, and ramifications that come with that.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my 2 things: therapy and vet the place you're going to be, because this is your partner in healing, especially if it's for mental health reasons. You want a really cute, adorable dog because you want to go fit into the public again. You want to go back to your old self. You're not going to ever be back at your old self. Like, that old self was probably a crappy person anyways. Like there's stuff I hate about my 18-year-old self. I much prefer my 35-year-old self with 4 years with Thor, getting back into public, and trying to find that balance between getting back in public in a safe manner and
Wait,
like
wait. You're saying you didn't have it all figured out at 18? Because I knew everything, everything.
I know every teenager does. We should just have them roll
I was
this.
like, look, I'm serving, I'm in all things, I got it. Just a little money coming in my pocket. What does the world have for me?
Yeah.
Fast forward, add some years. It's like, well, that was dumb.
Yeah.
We have Deborah real quick here with us in comments saying Army 10 years, Air Force 23. Well, Deborah, you just
Wow.
kind of serving us.
Overachiever.
Got a few days that you put in there. Thank you for your service. She also shared DBT is a great program that you can get in through your local VA behavioral health service. And I would really implore folks, try different things. And it's okay if that's not for you, because what works for one may not work for the other. And when it comes to mental health, sometimes I think that we feel like everything has to be one size fits all. If you were to go to the dentist or get a cast for a broken foot, it's not one size fits all. It would have to be something specific for you. So why would mental health be any different? And it's okay to say, hey, look, we've tried this, and that's where the relationship with the therapist comes in handy. Because you may go down a path of saying, okay, we're going to try this modality, and at a certain point, it's just like, you know what, we got to pull the eject button because this is not working. Let's try something else. But at least you can check off and say, hey, I tried it, not for me. But you have to have the ability to have that reset moment, because it's not you failed the therapy. No, it's just it didn't work. You know what I mean? Like medication. This didn't work. Take another one. Rob Rogers in the house says, Christopher, thank you for your hard work. We got LB in the house as well. Thanks for talking about this. I've been out for 29 years, and this bothers me. Watching you guys and the Mental Health Mondays on VA side simultaneously, as always, good to see you all. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Kathy says, shared your email tonight. Only found it after 8 p.m. Thank you for doing this. Maybe again and again over the next few weeks, months. Thank you for holding space, y'all. Let's see here.
I also wanted to
yeah.
bring up like the news stations make news and make money by saying the sky's falling. So what they're reporting, yes, it is horrible what's going on in Afghanistan, but they're gonna make it so you're watching CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever you're watching, for hours and hours and hours. So turn it off. Like you're gonna get play by play of what's going on, and find ways to turn it off because they're making money off of your reaction to it, and like it's not healthy. Like horrible things have been going on in Afghanistan for a while, and none of them made news. But like you see that one small clip they're playing over 50 times, and it's not going to do you any good mentally, physically, emotionally watching the two Afghans fall from the plane for 30 times in a row. So just turn the news off as much as you can. Get what you need out of it by all means, but please turn the news off because they are a money-making machine. They really don't care if you understand the news.
And it is a broken record. It is the same thing over and
it is.
over. And then one show ends, the other picks up, and they dissect the same daggone thing with the same points just from another angle, and it's just never ending.
30 minutes of content played for 24 hours. So.
That part.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got Joe in the house, U.S. Navy, 83 to 03. Thank you for being here. Carmen shares, when I was told about this today, wasn't sure how to interpret this. Let's see. Chris said something pretty cool here. Let's see. Rashida said, I want to be normal. This is my normal. And I think that's also cool to kind of, refine what that new normal may be. Roger said he bumped into a vet support dog group recently. None were vets. None had experience with a dog like this. They made pets who wore support dog jackets. People were invited and welcome to interact. And you have emotional support dogs and other dogs that hold, or animals that hold, certain values or whatnot. But there's levels to the game, and when you start looking at specifically a service animal, a service dog, it's specifically tailored to you specifically. Like this is not the for the community type of thing. Like there are dogs that just have a propensity to be very much calming and have those demeanors. But Thor is for Kim. Legend is for me. Just don't tell my daughter that.
And it drives my fiance up the wall because she's like trying to cuddle with Thor, or like I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go drop this off at the post office. Can you watch him real quick? Because it's like 95 out, and it's just not worth like dropping something off. And he's just sitting there like,
Well, it's the weirdest thing. So, and we've talked about this before, and I think that this will be a good reset eventually. I had Alexis; she couldn't make it tonight because she just finished actually in Fordham, her master's. So she's a therapist. She's an Afghani veteran, also with a service dog. So she just finished her studies and got her license. So now she's practicing as a therapist. But when we talked and we had a conversation, she kind of gave her perspective as a single woman veteran in New York City and what life is like with a service dog, right? And in my case, being married with 3 kids, what does that look like? And it's there are different dichotomies of how all that works, and it's interesting because at home, like the way we interact is not what most people would expect, right? Like it's almost interesting how they kind of start tailoring themselves to you, and it's like I don't need what people may think. Like I'm like I can try to cuddle with him. He's just like, all right, dude. Like, what are we doing here? That's not what we're here for. Like, it's weird how some things kind of play out. And he like my wife. He's like, all right, you can come up. Me like, not you so much. But if I step out the door and I go and he realizes, if I get up, it's like time to go. So it's always the weirdest thing. Like he could be there with the kids or whatever. I get up and move, shadow. I say, hey, stay, I'm going to go to the mailbox or whatever and take a few steps. He will plop by the door, and it's like, no, all the things you saw before, all of it's gone. Like, if I go to Walgreens for a few minutes, and it's like, you know what, it's not worth it, stay here, I'll be back. Nope. What happened the whole time? Like, my wife will send me pictures of him just like by the door. He just stays there like, what happened to friendly on your back, rub my, no. He's like, you messed up here, playboy. And then when I get back, I really can't get rid of him because he's like, no, I'm not letting you out of my sight right now. But I think that's, again, another point that's good to have because folks need to hear those things, right? How do you implement these type of things into your life? And again, this is one aspect of it. For others, maybe different ways or whatnot. But, if folks have questions, again, reach out, email us, lessonsfromthor.com. Look at the book and reach out and try to get some information there. We'll start wrapping here in a few minutes. So if anyone has any questions or thoughts or things they may want to say, feel free to put that into the chat. Obviously, this conversation is happening within the chat. So what I like about these sessions is that sometimes it's just talk that's happening between folks. And that's not, for others to see. So if you see it on the replay, there's conversations that are happening between folks, right? Deborah's sharing with Chris, and Chris is telling Rashida something, and they're just kind of having, some fellowship right now, which is needed. And that's what this is about. It's about creating some space to be able to at least bond and share, and just for a minute kind of change the narrative just a little bit. In the links, Lisa is sharing some of the information that we have here. So if you head over to veteransnetwork.club, in our blog section, you'll see the article and the video attached to it that we have for this service dogs for disabled veterans that we did and shared some information there. And obviously in our YouTube where you're watching us, you may see some things we've done in the past. Let's see here. Over to you, Brian. So as we start kind of wrapping up, what are some of your thoughts as a whole, all together? Good stuff?
Yeah. Well, just to kind of reiterate what we've been saying, walk away, and even to Kim's point, own your feelings, experience them for now, but realize it's going to pass. Don't immerse yourself in all of this triggering news. It's not adding any value to you. And to Chris's point and others, the tragedy and strife have been going on in Afghanistan and around the world since the beginning of the world, quite frankly. Thankfully, we're not exposed to it constantly. So let's not start doing that to ourselves now. It's not going to help us. So treat yourself well by not indulging. Hey, I like Matlock reruns. Let's go for it. So,
Yeah. Let's see. We got Carmen said it. Legend. In all honesty, thank you for holding the space. It's calming to hear that we are here for each other. Love it. Thank you guys. And you know, that's kind of what this is all about, right? It's like, hey, current events. There's no script. Hey, we're just kind of rolling. You know what I mean? And I just kind of put up the bat signal, and folks kind of can jump in. And Kim was just like, I'll be there. And you know, here we are, and just, you know, try to just open the door for a little bit, just to kind of change the narrative, kind of like you know, breaking off from regular programming. Um, let's see here. One thing I think was really cool here that um, was shared was Deborah said to Rashida in the comments. One thing she said was regarding the news. Said was triggering to her. You know, she has to limit it. But absolutely can be a trigger. We need to take care of ourselves and make wise choices to help us get through the day and stay healthy and happy. And I think those are, you know, some salient points that make great sense to be able to share for sure. So that's something there to kind of bring up. Shabas is in the house. Just found these comment on post. Feel free to share if you haven't. Yeah, definitely. I'll read that here in a second. And again, sharing the information here for those that may have missed it. As far as if you need to reach out, talk to someone for sure, this is things that are available. So please don't hesitate to either reach out to someone you know or services that are available as well. Um, let's see here. Uh, let's see. Oh, and this is a great point here too. Please educate yourself before sharing content about these topics. A lot of opinions out there, few facts, and that's also is pervasive in social media, where things begin to start taking tones and, you know, flavors and, you know, personal opinions that may be a little bit far off, you know, facts and realities, and that just creates a whole situation that, you know, we don't really need per se. Kim, as we start kind of wrapping up, some of your closing thoughts and things that you would leave for folks out there.
Yeah. I think if anyone's trying to like say what was it all worth or what's the point, I think it's okay to not have an answer. Like, and it's okay to be pissed off, happy, or like whatever your feelings are. Like a lot of people are going to anger, but if you're not resonating with anger and you're really relieved that your son or daughter is never going to have to serve, that's completely fine and valid. But just be okay where you're at. And like if you're in a really turmoiled state, like talk to someone. I've had a lot of veteran friends go to the VAER or like call Give an Hour or call a veteran crisis line. And it doesn't, like, you don't get like crazy tattooed on your head. Like it's completely fine. You're just talking to someone, you're connecting with someone. And depression only thrives in isolation, and connection kills depression every single time. And if you connect with people and you continue working that connection, that depression is going to subside over time. And if it's right with the right people, don't go on Facebook comments looking for connections. That's not going to find connections that you need. You need to call those trained people, the crisis intervention people, and the people that are going to be supportive. That Aunt Susie that's always just been there for you, or maybe like Uncle Steve was deployed, or I'm sure a lot of Vietnam people can resonate with your feelings right now. So it's okay to not make sense of it right now. And the sooner you deal with these emotions, the better, because they have this thing called the trauma membrane. And so the longer you wait, the thicker that membrane gets and the harder it is to process your feelings. And that's what I did for 5 years after my deployment. And after a few, like a sexual assault and other crap in the Army, I just bottled it up for 5 years. And the only reason I had to go to like residential and all these other treatments was because that trauma membrane was so thick. So deal with it now. If stuff's coming up, the sooner the better to talk to someone and to get that help. And if you're a veteran, there's so many resources. Like Give an Hour has free therapy. Headstrong has free therapy. The VA has free therapy. So just get some therapy or go on one of those retreats, go hunting with the boys or with the girls or whatever you have to do to get the help you need, because Afghanistan, like us worrying about it's not going to change it, unfortunately. And like us watching the news isn't going to change it. And like it's sad to watch, but like we have to move on and we have to figure out like how are we going to live and make meaning from what we did, and how are we going to love our families, how are we going to be a good friend, and how are we going to live today, because like I don't think anyone's going to put the uniform back on and go back to fight in Afghanistan. Like it's over and it's really sad to watch. but we have to figure out like how to live now, and that's going to be very difficult. Don't get me wrong, but we have to figure it out, and I fully believe connection is a way to do that.
I would be remiss to say that I think that what Kim just said may have been a pun about me also not fitting into my uniform that I had back in the day. So let's just go ahead and put that out there right now. So I see what you did there, Kim. um, but no, I would say as well, the theme right of our space here tonight, right? It's being able to just be in the now, right? Give yourself permission to grieve. Give yourself permission to feel. Give yourself permission to just be, and then we just take it a step at a time. Because at the end of the day, I think it's just we can lose sight of the bigger picture, and it's like, look, tomorrow isn't here. Yesterday has passed. What really matters is the now, today. This is what's really happening. This is the priority, and it's really easy to lose focus of things with life and all the things that may come with that, especially as veterans, especially as folks that have dealt with trauma, especially as folks that have dealt with different things. So for many of us, right, going back to the things we talked about, right, we were 17, we were 18, we were 20, we were kids, and for many of us that served. And the reality is that we were exposed to things and saw things that we were definitely not prepared to see and experience very quickly. And that makes you mature and live life in a different way, right? You see the world a little bit different, especially in post service, right? And trying to find your tribe again and find where do you fit in. And I think having moments like this to be able to share and find folks that we may relate to, again, whether it's reaching out to Kim's organization, our organization, or wherever it may be. The point is there are resources, there are options, and hopefully this comes across as us really coming across as your equals, right? We're no better than you, we're no worse than you. Yes, some have had it worse, but some have had it better. I think that's something that many of us fight with, right? Because others we say have had it worse. Others, deserve this. I don't. And we start to diminish our value, our worth, and what we deserve. And when someone says something like, well, someone else has it worse and they deserve, X, Y, Z, I'm not going to, take up time or resources. That's true, maybe in your mind, but the reality is that someone also has it a whole lot better. And the reality is that the last time I checked, there is a lot of money in the coffers for these services that are out there. And people would be surprised these services that are just left on the table, the benefits that are left on the table, because everyone plays, up this concept of, what, Brian needs this, Kim needs this. But what you don't know is that Brian says, I don't need this, DP needs this, Kim needs this. But then Kim says, well, I don't need this, Brian needs this, DP needs this. And at the end of the day, the three of us don't get anything. And that's 3 empty seats at a service or a benefit or what have you that stays out there. That happens constantly. So if you're in a place to reach out, do so. If you're in a position to be able to help somebody else and share this information with them, do so. Please check out, again, lessonsfromthor.com on social media under the same name, and some of the things that Kim is doing and the work she's doing with Badgers United in the first responder community and veteran community as well. Because this is what it is. It's about coming together, understanding that, this is no different than the military. The fact of the matter is we're holding our AO here and Kim's holding her AO there. It's combined that we have a greater reach to do things. So it doesn't matter that you reach out to someone as long as you're doing something and you're trying to help. That's really the big thing. So, I appreciate everyone who have joined us here on live. I appreciate those that would share this with those that may need to see this later. If you find yourself in a situation where maybe you tune in a little bit late or kind of caught it after the fact, you can go back and watch this again. Conversely, you may be in a situation where maybe you're not ready to watch this right now, and that's okay because you can then watch it later. Especially, one of the things I've always remembered is when we had an MST roundtable with a few psychologists and some survivors, both men and women. The first thing we said was, hey, shut this down if you're not ready to see this right now. You can watch this later. And we had, a veteran that reached out and said, thank you, because I did shut it down. And then I went to my closet, and that's where I saw it, and I cried because I was able to then absorb the information that was being given to me. And I think that's really comes into respecting someone's process and journey. Because sadly, we all want to help. But remember that when you were in a position not to be helped, you couldn't be helped. And sometimes we have to honor someone's journey and process, and understand that maybe right now what Kim needs is me just saying, hey, I'm here, right? Brian maybe needs me to go ahead and kick the door down and say, hey, we're going to go out now. But understand that everyone is in a different place. So no matter what's happening, again, this is kind of why we do what we do. I appreciate those that are here. Again, like we said in the beginning, our hearts and our minds and thoughts and prayers are with those currently serving, both home and abroad in different locations, doing the things that we have experienced in our time. Thoughts and our prayers are with those that have served, who once lived a life, right, of doing things and may feel detached. But to Kim's point, I would double down and quote Dr. Goldston in saying that really it's that detachment that's the problem. Because when you start to look at depression and people that go to places where they might become statistics, or you feel like no one's going to notice, because many of us deal with depression. But when you start to really get into those darker moments, those places where it's like, hey, maybe I don't want to be around anymore, that starts to play at the detachment side, because you start to hear things like, no one's going to notice, right? No one's going to care. If I stop reaching out, it doesn't matter. And that detachment side really is a big key when things begin to spiral. So I wanted to just really emphasize what Kim said as far as the connection piece, because that's what does it. And we've all heard the stories, right, where someone said, hey, you don't understand that when you reach out and say, hey, I just thought about you, I wanted to say what's up, fucker. Like literally that dumbass fucking text may be what someone literally says, you have no clue where the hell I was at. And some people will never tell you that. You will never know what that may have meant to someone wherever they may be, and maybe one day they can share that, but if they don't understand, sometimes you just don't know that the emphasis you have. So please let us move from awareness and fucking push-ups to actually action. Pick up your damn phone, use the daggone iMessage, use your FaceTime, use your WhatsApp, use your Facebook Messenger. There's so many damn apps. Download one, pick one, take a freaking wild gander, call, whatever. There's so many ways to be in contact. Reach out, do something, because that goes much, much further than just, hey, a post to say awareness, or hey, look at me doing some push-ups here. We need to move past awareness. We understand statistics. We know the numbers, but it's the action now. It's the reaching out now. It's the using technology to have the conversation. All three of us are in three different places, and those watching are in different places, but yet we're here. And we're using technology to leverage that, and that means something. So use the things that are available to you. But blessed to be around you all. Kim, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. Definitely more things to follow, so definitely stay tuned as we kind of reset, remix from our summer hiatus with some amazing things that are going to be coming down the road. Any alibis I may have missed, Brian?
No, just stay tuned. Great things are coming, and it's good. Like you said, we've been on summer vacation. Resting on the beach, not so much. But
the suntan gives it away, Brian. The suntan.
I know. I had to put some lightning on it to, yeah.
Oh man, awesome. Let's see some closing thoughts we have here. Roger, appreciate you, my brother, for being here. Lisa, as Amy would say, check on your strong friends. The heaviest things you have to pick up is a phone, and that is a true statement. So thank you all for being here. Kim, any alibis on your side? I think I've said it a few times, but in case somebody missed it, it is lessonsfromthor.com.
Yeah, there you go. Lessons from Thor. If you want some goodness in your life right now, turn off the TV and read this 100-page book. The record, one read it in 2 days, so if you can beat the record, there you go.
Goodness, wow. I like that. That's a great note. Goodness.
Someone can read it faster than a cop. Come
on. Seriously, though, come on now. But yeah,
just through the challenge.
Get you some goodness. But we'll be back with some amazing things. Stay tuned. Head on over to veteransnetwork.club to see some of the things that we're doing. Sign up. We have some books coming out, some information coming out, the anticipated conversations about cryptocurrency and all the things that we're doing in that space, financial literacy. It's a bunch of stuff that we have on our to-do. So definitely let's change the narrative, and instead of trying to combat negativity, let's just bring some positivity and light, because you'd be surprised how that does a better job than trying to fight fire with fire. Thank you all for being here. Kim, again, thank you so much. Brian, again, thank you so much. We will be back soon. Lessons from Thor.com.
Thanks for having me.